I arrived back at the Mojave outpost with the massacre of Nipton still fresh in my mind. My walk back had been a solemn one. No ambushes, no chance meetings with other travelers, just a lonely trudge through the wastes with nothing but the whistling of the desert wind and my own thoughts for company. The Legion had massacred an entire town. The NCR troopers who had come to Nipton, the powder gangers who were lying in wait to spring a trap, and the corrupt mayor who had set the whole thing in motion. I had to admit, somewhere on my long walk back, part of me felt a small bit of righteous justice had been enacted upon some of the folk. The mayor had been burned alive, but a traitor such as him deserved a similar end. My problem lay with the innocent folk of the town, the ones who had nothing to do with all this nonsense. War often had a way of hurting those not involved with it the most, and I suppose this was just history repeating itself again. I started up to the lookout post where I found Ghost and made my report of what happened in Nipton.
Hello. You check out the Nipton Town Hall yet? Smoke trail's not getting any shorter.
Nipton is gone. The Legion turned the place into a sinkhole and killed everyone. Nothing but crosses and corpses now.
Legion this far west? You're fucking kidding me. That's not outside the border. They're moving in, and fast. Nipton wasn't the most friendly town, but... Alright, thanks for checking on that. Wish it set my mind at ease. Now I'm more on edge than ever.
Sorry, I had to be the bearer of bad news. Better to know how close your enemy is, though, I suppose.
Unless you burn the town, don't take blame that's not due. Things are gonna get uglier before the year's out. Well, thanks for hoofing it there and back, even if it was bad news. Wish we could spare the troops to go hunting, but orders are to stay put. Fucking Mojave's going to hell, and all I can do is sit here and watch.
And that was that. The NCR was going to take its lumps and move on, leaving the town of Nipton as a graveyard and the folk who were dragged off into the wastes to their fate as slaves for the Legion. It wasn't surprising. The NCR was in rougher shape than I thought. They had overextended themselves in the Mojave trying to protect the dam, and now their lines were faltering. I decided I was going to go after those who had been taken, but it was going to be tough. I knew I had time, though, as the Legionnaires were still deep in NCR territory and holding captives. That meant they would be moving slowly and carefully, and that gave me time to get done what I needed to here, and then head out after them. I was taking a chance on losing their trail, but I wouldn't be much good against an raiding party of Legionnaires if I was exhausted and weak. It was already late in the day, and I decided to get one more night of rest before heading out after the captives. So, since I had the time, I decided to finish the hunt for Frankie's rat scorpion, something I wasn't looking forward to. Geckos were one thing, but rad scorpions were a tier or two above on the food chain. I readied my weapons and took a look at my map before starting off on my next hunt. As I was leaving, the sergeant called me over and thanked me for helping out the outpost.
Heard you helped out Jackson. Thanks for that. Caravans are still waiting for clearance to move out, but at least there's movement.
I decided to let him know about what happened at Nipton. As an officer, he should know what happened and what might be coming his way.
What? There's no way. We're miles from the Colorado. They aren't even waiting for the dam to fall. They're already inside the borders. We'll never stop them. Not at this rate. We're doomed. Thanks for bringing the word. Even if the news is bad, I'll let the men know. Watch yourself.
I said my goodbyes and moved on, leaving the dejected officer behind. The NCR was facing an uphill battle in almost every arena of the war, and it was wearing on the men. If they fell to the Legion, then every town and city from here to the Boneyard faced a similar fate to that of Nipton. My hunt for the rad scorpion took me east and north along the cliff faces, and I found myself running into various rad scorpions along the way. A foreboding reminder of what I was facing. I had asked around at the outpost if anyone knew any information on Bertha, and one of the soldiers had let slip that there was a rumor the monster had taken up residence in an old NCR bunker. It was all pretty hush, which made me wonder what was so important about this bunker. After fighting my way through multiple scorpions, I finally found the old bunker. and prepared to enter. Once inside, I was greeted by a heavy darkness and the sound of skittering, chitinous legs far ahead. I moved down the hallway to the first room of the bunker, a large concrete area full of scorpions. I quickly tossed down a few of the landmines I had scavenged, and then backed away after drawing their attention. I took out a few of them with the mines, and then started clearing out the remaining bugs. After making sure the room was clear, I opened the next door and was met by a charging rad scorpion. I backed up and threw down another line of mines and took out another of the smaller bugs. But the two larger ones got stuck in the other room. I unloaded on them with my pistol, but one finally broke free and stormed across the room at me, only to be met by my landmines. The second room was now clear, and I went about scrounging whatever I could, knowing I would need every advantage against Bertha. Rad scorpions were tough and deadly, something I was starting to understand as my supply of landmines was running low. There were several dead bodies, including those of rangers. They must have been caught off guard by the scorpions, as most showed signs of scorpion stings and claw marks that had torn clean through their armor. It was a terrifying sight, and I would be lying if I said I wasn't feeling nervous about continuing deeper into the bunker. However, I knew I had to if I wanted my reward from Frankie. After I was satisfied with my search, I started down the lower levels of the bunker. I reached the bottom of the stairs and fought back against the desire to vomit. The place smelled of death and decay, and once again I could hear the shuffling of scorpion legs on the concrete floor somewhere off in the distance. Started forward down the dark stairwell towards the dimly lit hallway with my shotgun in hand. As I rounded the first corner, I killed another scorpion, and then started picking off the others I could see skittering around further off. I was running low on ammo for the carbine, so I switched to my pistol, which did very little to the giant rat scorpion. I was forced back into the stairwell where the creature couldn't reach me, and then I slowly chipped away at it using my pistol and shotguns. As soon as it died, a few smaller scorpions came at me from the darkness, and I dropped them with my pistol. I cleaned up the stragglers and listened for a moment. I could hear something big in the next room, so I prepared by laying out some of the last remaining mines I had. I readied my gun and then opened the door. A line of rad scorpions stood at the ready, and I fired once into the horde before retreating. The mines went off perfectly and killed most of the scorpions that tried to pursue me. I crept forward and began picking off the last few scorpions, none of which were large enough to cause the loud sounds I had heard earlier. There was something in the far back corner of the room, something big. I set out my last remaining mines, and as soon as I threw the last one out, the hulking black mass of chitinous armor appeared from behind the massive crates and I found myself face to face with Bertha. She was the biggest red scorpion I had ever seen, and I turned and retreated back behind my line of mines before pulling out my carbine. She tore through the mines, shrapnel peeling off pieces of her armor, but it didn't stop her, and nor did a shot from the carbine. My last shot had been point blank, and I watched as the creature was blown back by the force of the rifle. I quickly reloaded, but it wasn't needed. Bertha lay at the center of the room in a heap of shattered armor and green goo that leaked from her shredded corpse. I stepped forward cautiously with my gun still out, stunned that I had been able to take down such a beast. Another second, a jam in my weapon, a moment's hesitation. Any of that and I would have been dead, torn to shreds by claws that were half the size of my body, or impaled by a foot-long stinger full of enough poison to kill a Brahmin. My instincts had kicked in and saved my life. My hunt for Bertha was over, and I did a quick scan of the area for anything of use before double-timing it out of that bunker. I had enough of scorpions and corpses for the day, and I hurried back to the surface before any other surprises decided to show up. By the time I exited the bunker night had fallen, I turned on my Pip-Boy light and started back in the direction of the outpost, as I refused to spend the night in the infested bunker. I moved quickly, but methodically, knowing the darkness brought all manner of creatures out into the wastes that normally wouldn't be out during the day. By the time I got back, I was tired from the long day, and I trudged slowly to the barracks before collapsing in one of the beds. I knew it was going to be an early morning, though, as I wanted to make up time trying to catch up to the Legion slavers. So I set my Pip-Boy alarm and fell into a deep sleep. I got started early the next morning and was leaving the outpost by sunup. I took a good look at the place as I knew I wouldn't be coming back for a while. And other than the problems in Prim, I felt like I had done some good in the area. Now, it was time to track down some slavers. There was no getting around it. This is going to be a tough mission, even if I had a group of scouts with me. One man versus a detachment of Legion raiders was not a bet I would usually place on myself, but I couldn't just leave them to be tormented. My first order of business was to head back to Nipton and search the place for any supplies I would need. Once again, I had to remind myself that I had time to catch up with the Legionnaires and their captives. They were moving slowly through enemy territory, or even lying low somewhere waiting for the heat to die down before making a dash for the other side of the Colorado. I needed to take my time, track them down, and have a plan ready to execute. If I rushed off, then things would get bad real quick. I stopped at the sign for Nipton and pulled out my Pip-Boy map. The powder ganger I had met back in Nipton had marked on my map the direction they were heading and an area one of the Legionnaires had mentioned. That would be the best place to start, and it was on the way to Novak. With my plan in place, I started off towards Nipton. I reached the town by midday and prepared to begin my scavenging. However, as I approached the Nipton Town Hall, I saw 2 Legionnaires still standing guard. I approached slowly and they eyed me with caution. I stopped in front of the 2 men but didn't say a word. A moment passed, and then in one motion I pulled out my pistol and unloaded 5 shots into the men. One of them survived 2 bullets to the chest, and he leaned forward, gasping in pain. I put him out of his misery. It felt good killing him, taking out my anger on the only 2 enemies left. The man with the dog's head wasn't there anymore, but at least I got these 2. I knew I shouldn't feel good about taking lives, but something inside me had been boiling. So much injustice, innocent folk tortured and killed, and I had enough of it. With that dealt with, I started into the Nipton Town Hall and began scrounging for anything I could find that would help me on my journey. What I found inside made my stomach turn and helped me get my mind off of killing the 2 Legionnaires. Bodies lay strewn about the place, stabbed, slashed, and gutted. Some had even been gnawed on by the looks of it. It was a horrible sight and made any guilt I had felt about killing those 2 slavers disappear. I searched a few of the bodies but remembered how careful I needed to be, as the Legion was famous for booby-trapping corpses of the dead and wounded they left behind. Turn one casualty into 2 or 4. I could hear soft footfalls on the floor above, so I moved forward cautiously. I heard growling, and then a rabid dog came at me from the stairs, which I dropped with 1 shot from my shotgun. They had left behind dogs to hinder anyone coming to check on the town. Pretty sick, but once again the Legion was about fear, and something like this sure would have that effect. I searched the place and killed any of the rabid canines I came across. While searching one of the bodies, I forgot to check for traps. The mine went off and left my ears ringing and shrapnel in both my leg and torso. I quickly dealt with the wounds before using a stim pack to ease the pain. I cursed at myself for being too reckless and not being aware of my surroundings. That sort of a mistake could get a man killed in a heartbeat. I was much more careful as I continued on, and eventually made it to the mayor's office. There wasn't much here other than an old laser pistol and a gun cabinet in the back. I came away with some ammo and a few odds and ends to sell before making my way back outside and continuing my scavenging. 2 homes were of note, one which had some bark scorpions in a cage which opened when a trap plate was triggered. The place didn't have much, but I did find a few things in a safe in the back. Another held a Mr. Gutsy that tried to burn me the moment I opened the door.
Opening fire.
Most of the other homes were the same. They had been picked over, but I found a few useful things for my journey. By the time I was finished looting, it was late, and I had to choose between going on in the dark or staying the night in Nipton. I found an empty home free of any of the bodies, and decided to sleep for a few hours, and then get started in the early morning. The hunt for the Legionnaires was on, and I was ready.